Hi, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. Thank you for subscribing. And if you're not a subscriber, but you like what we do here, help me out and hit that button. So, the Epstein files, they're not going away, are they? We know now from the White House, yesterday at the White House, Trump was frantic and his top staff are frantic because they have these four Republicans in the House who have signed the discharge petition with Democrats to release the Epstein files, to bring the vote to the floor to release the Epstein files. Okay. So they're desperate to shut this down because clearly that's almost an admission of guilt, right? All these so-called Christians surrounding Trump are protecting him, knowing he's guilty, knowing that it's what's in these files are not just him with underage girls, that it's much, much worse. And that's what's been reported, that what's in there is far worse than what people think. I think we've speculated on some things. There are rumors that he actually physically beat up some of these young girls. You know, this is all out there in testimony. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been publicly reported. I suspect it's even things that are that are worse than that. So at this point, with this drip, drip, drip that's coming out, because remember, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have these emails from the Epstein estate. Okay. These aren't from the files. They're just showing. So they're doing this drip, 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 releasing them. Now, what we learned today, or what I learned today, it might have been out there yesterday, in these emails, it shows that in 2017, when Trump was president of the United States, he spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. He spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein when he was president of the United States, well after that point in time where he claimed that they had had a fight about something. They were no longer friends. And we know this because at Jeffrey Epstein's records and calendars, it was Thanksgiving. He was having some people, very few people at his home. I don't know if it wouldn't have been New York. It probably would have been Palm Beach. And Trump would have been at Mar-a-Lago. Anyway, Trump's name was on it. So this is far, far worse than anything we know. Also, we know that, that Trump teen models, remember that? They shut that down, Trump Teen Modeling Agency. They shut that down very, very quickly in 2016 when he was running for president, and people started inquiring about it, looking into that. That went away. Now, Trump Teen Models Agency gave Jeffrey Epstein and John Casablancas access to underage girls. John Casablancas, you know, he was in scandals about and fully admitted he liked the underage girls. He died a number of years ago of cancer, but he had that modeling agency that Ivanka was apparently a part of. So I think what we probably will find out is that Trump wasn't just a client, that he was involved in trafficking these young girls. I've said that before. All his Miss Universe pageants, the teen pageants, and teen modeling agency. All of this, shows that he was more involved as well. When he very publicly, and he said this several times, he got mad at Jeffrey Epstein, he claims, because he stole an employee from Mar-a-Lago. Well, it was a towel girl in the gym. Why would somebody like him, the owner of the resort, even be aware of who the towel girl was at the spa? She was a teenager. She was underage. And Jeffrey Epstein, I guess, stole her away to go work for him, air quotes here. So there's a lot more here. And here's the thing. Republicans aren't going to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. However, they don't want to be the last one on the bandwagon. Remember, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but more stuff has happened. So we know that they're really, really pressuring. I mean, who would have thought our heroes would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mason, Lauren Boebert, and Massey, Congressman Massey. So this is still good. I hope they hold the line. Because here's the thing. If one of them were to fold, I think that there's all these Republicans in the House don't know what to do. We've heard rumors that there's as many as 100 or so that are, on the brink. They're willing to jump onto the discharge petition. Because at this point, now before they could say, well, we didn't know, but once it all came out, then I voted to release the Epstein files, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't know. Trump told us it was a hoax, blah, blah, blah. We're going to hear all of that. But because Democrats are releasing this information, drip, 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 just like Elon Musk did working with Putin. We know it was, obviously the source a few months ago for the stuff that came out in the Wall Street Journal about the birthday card and Trump doing those lewd and very suggestive and telling poems and drawings. Okay. So it's the drip, drip, drip that is it for Trump? No, he knows what's in it. He's pretty sure who has what. So the drip, drip, drip right now is for the benefit of House Republicans, because House Republicans are sitting there, sitting tight, waiting to see what happens. So to sign the discharge petition, and I'll tell you again, one more signature, and then Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're off the hook, because then I think it'll be more. Although I just now got off the phone with somebody, a fellow political strategist, kind of talking about this. Would it be just one? I mean, clearly somebody would have to be first, but it seems to me that there's safety in numbers. So if there's a handful of Republicans that don't like this very obvious and telling public pressure, and God knows what kind of private pressure being put on Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, well, mostly Boebert and Mace. The other two I don't think are reachable. And they don't like this because this is getting too close for comfort. And they're thinking that this is all going to blow up in everybody's face by the midterms. They have to then explain to their voters and their constituents why they didn't vote, why they didn't sign the discharge petition. Why were they involved in the cover-up? So the more this stuff leaks out, to get back to my original point, the Democrats are leaking this stuff out, making it harder for Republican members of Congress to say, well, I just didn't know. I just didn't know. They're seeing the evidence in real time that clearly there's certainly enough there to justify releasing the Epstein files. Because before they can say, oh, I didn't know anything. They can play dumb. So Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, releasing this stuff bit by bit, are making it increasingly more difficult for Republicans in Congress to claim they didn't know. Because now they can't feign ignorance. Now it looks like they are really actively involved in a cover-up. Even the stupidest of MAGA will see that. So when it happens, I think it'll happen quickly. But I think that the way they let this president know that you are not going to take these members of Congress who signed the discharge petition and threaten them and make their lives difficult. Also, it's telling, because then Republicans know he can do it to them anytime too, but I think they already do know that. They're not allies of his. They fear him. But safety in numbers. So if enough of them say all together, we're signing the discharge petition, leave Boebert, Mace, and the others alone. This ends now. Let the chips fall where they may. We would rather have it be now. This is an important point. We'd rather have it come out now so that we can find a way to deal with it, survive it, do what we need to do to deal with Trump on this, force him to resign or whatever, get it out of the way as well before, as far away from the midterms as possible. Because if they drag this out and we get into winter and spring, and now we're really in the midterm election cycle, it's going to be bad. I think that Republicans should plan for being in the minority, but distance themselves from Trump and save themselves. Instead of deciding it's my job as an individual Republican member of Congress to maintain the majority, you say, no, I'm going to save myself. The majority is lost because of Trump and Mike Johnson. Okay? So what we're going to do is save my own seat, and you do that by signing the discharge petition. Now, if it looks like this is going to happen anyway, I think a lot of Republicans are waiting to see if someone caves and takes their name off the discharge petition. But they're going to have to find a way to explain to their constituents why they didn't sign it, Why were you hiding the Epstein files? Why were you protecting Trump? So again, each of these released emails, when a new tranche comes out, is a signal to Republicans in the House of Representatives that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to continue to play dumb, because you can't play dumb anymore. You can't call it a witch hunt. You can't call it a hoax. You can't say you didn't know. It's going to be much, much easier for the Democrat running against these Republicans in the midterms to say, you knew and look what you were protecting. Yes, you had enough evidence. You had enough evidence on these very specific dates when this information came out to know that Trump and Epstein, this whole thing was enough of a problem that it needed to be dealt with. And you chose instead to protect Trump on this. Knowing what you knew, you still decided to protect him. And that's why this information, enough information coming out. If I'm a Democrat running against a Republican, I'm going to be holding up the birthday card stuff, the drawing of the prepubescent young girl, the naked drawing with the poem and their secret. I'm going to be holding up these emails. I'm going to be holding up the email that shows that Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017 when he was president of the United States. And then you can't have the Republican incumbent that you're running against claim that they didn't know. It's like, yes, you did. This came out this date. This came out this date. This was in the Wall Street Journal. This happened. You had the opportunity to sign the discharge petition. You sat there in your office knowing full well that Trump was doing everything he can to threaten, bribe, and beat up Nancy Mace and Lauren Boebert to take their names off that discharge petition. The fact that he did not want this to come to light tells you he was in those Epstein files. He's hiding something. You chose to hide it. And that was the whole purpose of the government shutdown. So this is every Democrat running against a Republican can say this. So again, if I'm advising Republicans, I would say, this stuff is going to come out one way or the other. And you can do the drip, drip, drip and try and play dumb as you get closer to facing your voters in the midterms, or you can take care of this now, let the chips fall where they may, and then deal with the President Vance, which again, is not an ideal scenario, but I'm just looking realistically in what the strategy needs to be. And I hope that the DNC, the DCCC, the congressional arm of the DNC, has research staff, have somebody there keeping track of all of this. Even if you don't yet have your Democratic nominee or a lineup of people running against these Republicans, you may want to start recruiting them in districts where, you might have not have thought that it was winnable, but it might be. And I want you to start putting together these packages. It has to be at the research department. And if it means that you have to beef it up and hire a few more staffers, then do it. Please don't wait until the last minute. But start putting this together. Track these members of Congress, these Republicans. Okay? You can even have letters sent to them by constituents or potential anybody or reporters, work it in each and every one of those offices. Have them be asked the question directly. With this information, Republican congressman or congresswoman so-and-so, now that you know this, with the birthday card, with these emails, now that we have all this information, and isn't it odd that the president is so desperate? Why would he not want this to the way to show his innocence that he says it's a hoax is to have it all released. Pin it on them now. Pin it on them now. And see what comes out of their mouth. And if what comes out of their mouth now isn't helpful, you make sure that everybody knows about it right before the election. Again, Republicans should plan for minority and save themselves. That's my advice.